think I moved this too much. Okay, so here's your video for your EOC review day number 4. So this has got a lot of different things, and this may take you a little bit. So first of all, we have a decay or growth question. And it says, suppose that the future price of a certain item is given by the following exponential function. In this function, P to T is measured in dollars, and T is the number of years from today. Okay, so what is the initial price? So your initial price is always that beginning. It's this guy right here. So that would be your 1,500. Now, do we know that this is growth or a decay? If this amount is larger than 1, then it's a growth. It's higher than. But how do we find out what that percentage is? So we can take the difference between 1 and that number. So I'm just going to say 1 minus 1.049 equals. Now, I don't care if it's a positive or negative, but what you're going to want to do is you need this into a percent, so we need to multiply it by 100. And that's going to give me a 4.9. Ignore the negative or whatever you end up doing with it. We know that it's a growth, and there it is. So that's exactly how you do that. Not too terrible. These growth and decays, I want to make sure you understand those. Here, anytime you have a quadratic equation, you need to make sure that when it's solving for v and you've got the squared and you've got something that looks like, if you remember, ax squared plus bx plus c, it needs to look like that. So first of all, I'm going to move over here to do this because I'm going to need some room. So 4v squared plus 5 equals a negative 21v. And they may say solve for v or to factor. So on here, I need to add that 21v back over here. But when I do that, add 21v, it's not like terms with anything. So I end up with 4v squared, because that's like ax squared, plus the 21v, which goes along with this, plus that constant, which is usually our y-intercept. And you can put equals 0 or equals y, either way. So I'm just going to leave it like this. Now, you can go ahead and put this into Desmos. And it might ask you for the roots. If you're looking for roots, that is your where it hits the x. So where x-intercept. Not the y, but the x. Those are your roots. Okay, so right now I'm going to go ahead and factor that. So these two together is 20v squared. Factors of 20, that's going to give me 21. It's probably going to be, let's see, my factors of 20 is 1 times 20. That gives me 21. So that might be it. 2 times 10, 3, 4 times 5. None of those give me 21 because I need to get it to 21 except for these two. So it's a 1v and a 20v. Bring down that 5. Bring down that 4v squared. Start our grouping. This is very important so you guys understand. This should be secondhand. What do these two have in common? A v. When I take out a v, I'm left with 4v. That should have been a v. Why did I put a 4 there? Plus 1. Here, if I take out a 5, I'm going to take out that 5 and get this divided by this gives me 4v plus 1. Again, these two should be the same. If not, you've made a mistake. I am going to take out the 4v plus 1, and then what's left over? V plus 5. Now, if they want the roots of this, you would set up each one of these. I mean, these are called the factors. If they want the roots, you'd set these both equal to 0 and solve for v. Okay, next, key. Make sure it's in the right format before you start solving. The next one is graphing a parabola. Anytime you're graphing, you should always make a table. That's the easiest way to do this, or put it into Desmos. Desmos is always good. But if you don't know how Desmos, it's not reading quite right and you're not for sure, make this XY table and just make up your values. Okay, I'm just going to give a few values. So I'm going to substitute this X here. So this would be 2 times 0 to the second power, 2 times 1 to the second power, 2 times 2 to the second power, 2 times 3 to the second power. And this will make it super easy because you could just put this into your calculator, arrow up, and keep getting it. So 2 parentheses, 0 parentheses. Make sure they're in parentheses. To the second power, I get 0. So that equals 0. My first point is 0, 0. Next point, I'm just going to arrow up and put a 1 here. Equals. That gives me a 2. Next, arrow up, put a 2 in there. 8. And you're going to see that this is probably multiplying by 2. So the next one, so you multiplied to get here, you multiplied by 4. Let's see if that's still the case. Nope, 18. I know why, because of this 2 here. Okay, so then go ahead and graph those. So 1, 2, 2, 8, 3, 18. I don't think you can go there. So if you can't make it there, let's go the other way. Let's try a -1. So 2 times a -1 squared. Let's go the other way. I'm going to have to insert or clear that out and just put -1 parentheses squared. And that equals 2. So -1, 2. So -1 and then 2. So you can see this parabola and know that this is 1, 2, 1, 2. This will go up like that. There you go. So those are really actually super easy if you would just take the time and make a table. This one here is also an equation. You'll notice a lot of these equations are going to look alike. It says a phone company offers 2 monthly plans. So you're going to have 2 plans. So A, Plan B. Plan A costs $9, so that's a flat fee. So 9 plus, each means you're going to multiply. So that's your variable, X, and then that equals Y. And the next one, B, is you start out with 15 plus 0.10x equals y. So this looks like it's in slope form. So you can graph this on your own and see where it crosses. You can throw it into Desmos. Or here it says when they are the same. If they're the same, then you just set them equal to each other. Once you get the x, then you substitute it back in to get your y. I'll go ahead and finish this one so you can see it. I need to get my variables together. I always send the smallest one over. So minus 0.10x, 9, and what is that? Make sure you use your calculators just to make sure, just even though you think you know it. So that's a positive 0.04x is equal to 15, because that canceled out. Now I'm going to subtract 9, so that cancels out. 0.04x is equal to 15 minus 9. Again, if you're not sure, punch it in. Divide by, I wrote that wrong, 0.04. Boop. Divide both sides by 0.04. So 6 divided by 0.04, and that's going to give me 150. So x equals 150. Okay, so now that I have my x value, and my x value is my minutes. My y value is the cost. So now I'm going to take this and punch it into one of my equations. It doesn't matter. So x is the number of minutes. So I'm going to say 9 plus 0.14 times 150 minutes. And how much does that equal? $30. And there's my answer. This one's interesting. This one's saying solve for x, but we have all these variables. Do not freak out. Pretend like pretend like y is like a 7. And you can do this easily. So I'm going to rewrite it up here. I'm solving for x, so I'm going to get rid of that y. So I'm going to add y to both sides. So I have z plus y, very strange, equals 8 times x. How do you get rid of the 8? You divide. So x is equal to z plus y divided by 8. Do not let those things freak you out. They are actually pretty easy. You're just solving for a variable. And you are so good at solving equations. This one you should be able to get. All right, number 6. All right, so this one says solving for v. I'm looking at this, and I'm going to simplify this. So a couple ways to do this. I'm going to distribute that guy. So I end up with v squared plus 4 to the second power. I'm just going to leave it like that. Equals 2v squared plus 4v minus 5. Okay. 4 to the second power is 16. So I'll go ahead and do that. We need to get everything on the same side of the equation. Now, it doesn't matter which side, so I'm going to send all of this over here. So I'm going to subtract v2 and then subtract the 16. If I subtract v2, of course the like term is here, so I'm going to put it here. This is my constant at the end, so I'm going to subtract, put that over here. And then basically you're just solving that. You're left with 0 over here, or y. And then you're saying this minus this is v squared, or 1v squared, plus 4v, because there was nothing to do with that, and that's a negative 21. Now, they're probably going to want you to do this thing here and find those factors or find those roots. And again, your roots you can find on Desmos. It's your x-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to factor those out. So I need a negative 21v. What two numbers when multiplied give me 21v? And I would say it's I know it's 7 and 4. But which one has to be negative? To get to get a positive 4. I'm sorry, this is a 3. 7 times 3 gives me 21. And one of those has to be negative to get a positive 4. So the bigger the number would be, positive. This one's going to be negative. Bring him down. Bring him down. I told you have to be professionals at that. Group these. What does this have in common? A v. V on the outside. What's left? V plus 7. What does this have in common? A negative 3. Take the negative. I'm left with v plus 7. Hallelujah. These two are the same, so I'm going to factor out a v plus 7. When I do so, I am left with a v minus 3. Now, if you're looking for the roots, you need to set each of these equal to 0. And I'll do these really quick if that's what you need. So you'd subtract 7, so v equals negative 7, add 3, and v equals 3. And those would be your two roots. Or, like I said, throw it into Desmos and get where it crosses the x-axis. The next question. We're just adding these together. To me, the easiest way, like I've shown you over here, is to put them underneath. So this is a 7u squared. That's a positive 4u and a positive 6. He's gone, and I'm just going to add these together. So that gives me 5u This gives me a positive 9u, and this gives me, what is that, a positive 5, and I'm done. So adding those are great. Next one, when you're doing these, you are distributing everything. So 3x times 6x is 18x squared. 3x times 1 is a positive 3x. Negative 5 times 6x is a negative 30x. Negative 5 times 1 is a negative 5. And then we're going to combine these like terms in the middle. 18x squared, and then that would be a negative 27x minus 5. And that's your final answer. Okay, so doing this is the opposite of what we did over here. All right, getting closer. All right, so we want to move these graphs. So here's the formula. Ax minus h squared plus k. This is your up and down movement. This is the opposite because of that negative. This makes it bigger or positive and negative. All right, so here, the squared is here. So basically it's our k. So we're going to move this down 2. So 1, 2. So it's going to look like this, and you're just moving it down. Okay. This next one, that's on the inside. So this is this part. So it's the opposite of 4, so that would make it a positive 4. So we're moving him over 1, 2, 3, 4. So same thing, but we're just moving it over. Okay. Last question is we're going to subtract. Before when we added, that was fine. The problem with subtraction is you need to distribute this to everything. So let's do the 4xy squared plus x squared minus 3x squared y. Okay, so that becomes a negative 7x squared y. Sorry about that. This becomes a positive 2y. Do we have any of those? Nope. So we'll put him here. He becomes a negative 5x squared. So a negative 5x squared. So do you see what I was doing? I was trying to get those like terms together. Okay, let's add them. Now we can add them. 4xy squared, this and this together combined gives me a negative 4x squared, negative 10x squared y, and a plus a 2y. And that's how you do it.